It starts right now. A Renewed Mind, hosted by Dr. H. Dante Duckett, pastor of New Kingdom Faith Christian Church. Position yourself right now to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Now, here's our host, Dr. H. Dante Duckett.
Hello and welcome to another podcast of A Renewed Mind. I'm your host, Dr. H. Dante Duckett, and I'm truly excited to be with you on another segment of A Renewed Mind. We have done a great deal of work these past 20 episodes. I believe we're on episode number 21 now, and we have been doing some deep diving into the process and the power of a renewed mind. There are so many things we've discussed, but you guys need to go back and look at and listen to some of all of our previous episodes. You can get all of my episodes on Spreaker.com. That's www.spreaker, Spreaker.com, or you could go on the app, go to your app store, Google Store, whatever app you use to be able to download all of your apps, and check out pray.com, Pray.com. Check out pray.com. They also have all of my podcasts, or if you're on Apple, you can go to iPod, go to the Apple podcast and type in my name, Dante, Duante, Duckett, Duckett, and be able to check out all of my podcasts. You can find them on all the platforms. And we've been expanding rapidly. Our podcast has been expanding all over the globe rapidly. Persons have been chiming in. Persons have been commenting, calling me, sharing with me how great the podcast has helped them, how it has really put them on a trajectory of being a better them. I believe that my goal, my assignment, the reason I was placed on this earth is to help each and every person that I'm connected to become a better them, They can be the best that they can possibly be. And I believe I can be a catalyst to be able to help get them on that path. That's my goal. That's my assignment. And I believe we're able to do that with this podcast, A Renewed Mind. So last few weeks, I'm going to go through, I normally do a recap, talk about some of the tidbits, some of the things that we discussed a few weeks ago. We talked about you need to discover your inner vows. And then last week we talked about a renewed mind never settles. A few weeks ago we talked about you need to discover your inner vows. Those vows you made prior to you actually knowing what a vow was. You made some vows as a child that you would never allow a certain thing or a person to ever hurt you. And those vows, contrary to popular belief, have actually stunted your growth. They've actually positioned you to not to become what you've been called to become, or to fool you, because you've made those vows, and those vows have actually shut the door on certain opportunities. We've had many discussions about trust. We've had many discussions about trying to break through certain areas of your life, and those vows have literally created a barrier, created a blockage in your life, because you've decided to not become hurt through a situation, which is a normal situation, normal response, specifically when you're a child, specifically when you're growing up. You don't want to actually have to experience the pain of those moments, or that individual may have done something to you that they had no business doing. However, those vows have literally locked you in to a way of life to ensure that you never experiment, you never expand where you are. Those vows have done exactly that. Then we talked about last week never settling. Man, that never settles is huge. A person with a renewed mind never settles. It will not allow what they believe they should be. They will never allow where they should be to be controlled by what's trying to pull them down. A renewed mind will never stay down. They will always look for the way up, look for the way out. I've shared with this many times, but most persons find themselves so far down in an emotional pit, it takes them so much energy to climb out that they don't have enough energy to continue their trajectory up. I shared this on last week, that most planes use 30 to 40% of their fuel capacity just to launch. And if you don't have enough fuel to stay up, to stay high, to stay elevated, to be able to stay on your path, you're going to come down quickly because you don't have enough fuel capacity to stay up. You don't have enough fuel capacity to remain in an elevated state. A renewed mind never settles. A renewed mind will never allow their life to settle below their standard. So tonight, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit to help you understand the power of your attitude. Most individuals don't believe that or understand that your attitude starts with your mental capacity, starts in your mind. Your mind dictates your attitude, your outlook, what's going on, how you view life. It's controlled by your mind and is displayed in your attitude. I've discovered something in my research prior to this podcast. I discovered an equation I want to give you. I believe I found this. It was on a site called The Power of Attitude, and this really is going to help me tonight in our podcast. Look, it gives me this equation. Event plus response equals outcome. This is good. Listen to this. Event plus response equals outcome. E plus R equals O. I need you to write that down. E plus R equals O. This is big, y'all. You got to understand that the event, whatever that event is, plus your response will equal your outcome. One of the things that I've seen and I've come to understand in my life is that in most cases, all things that we encounter are created equal. Everyone kind of encounters the same thing. I can't control the circumstances in which you encounter them, but many of us have the same event. We all go through school. We all go through high school. We all go through elementary. We all go through these events. These events happen in our life. And most of us experience the same type of events. We experience death. We've experienced a marriage. We've experienced a child being born. All of us experience those events. Now, we can't control all the circumstances that surround those events, but we all pretty much experience the same type of event. But what we can't control, what makes us different, is our response to the event. Our response to the event. We experience the event, but the thing that we control is our response to an event. Many of us have been in a car accident. It's our response to the accident that will equal our outcome. Some persons have experienced some very disastrous events in their life. How they respond will equate to their outcome. This is where we're going to do our deep dive today. The event plus your response equals your outcome. But what controls your response? Now listen, the event is equal. The event is something that's going to happen. We can't control that event. We can't control those events. Those events happen. But what we can control is our response. So what I got to deal with tonight, what we got to deal with today, is how we control our responses. Where do our responses come from? How do we generate our response? Listen to this. In my research, Harvard psychologist William James makes this statement. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitude of mind. Let me repeat that. The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes of mind. This is good, y'all. This is real good. How you control your life is controlled by your attitude of your mind. This is why Paul consistently challenges us to do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of our mind. We have to renew our mind. And as we're renewing our mind, I believe our responses will change. Our responses will change. Our mind has to be renewed. Philippians 2:14 says, do all things without grumbling or complaining. When you transform your mind, when you start renewing your mind, your attitude changes and your response to situation and events will ultimately change. Your attitude makes the difference. Your attitude is the X factor. We all start with 24 hours. If all things being equal, the person with the best attitude will win every time. Does your attitude reflect restriction or freedom? Does your attitude reflect that you being constrained, or you feel like somebody's trying to control you, or you feel like somebody's trying to hurt you, or you feel like something is not right? Then that's how, listen to me, that's how your responses are going to be. Your responses are going to be based on restriction. So when God gives you, listen, when God gives you an assignment and it requires you to take a leap of faith, if your attitude is constantly on restriction, more than likely you're going to be the one that does not take the leap of faith, because your response to the assignment, your response to the event that God has given you is based on your response based on to that event is based on restriction. Then you're not going to allow yourself the freedom, listen, the freedom to take that leap of faith. Our attitude is the X factor. How we view a situation is the X factor. There are persons, I can tell you, there's a difference between a person that's grateful versus a person that's always complaining, never has enough. An individual that grows up in the same neighborhood, and if this neighborhood is a dilapidated neighborhood, if that individual that is grateful for what they have, grateful does not mean you're settling, but grateful for the fact that they have a place to stay in, versus the person that's constantly complaining, that person's attitude, that person that has the grateful attitude, is going to be able to see the glass half full versus half empty, and will be able to find their way out of what they're in, and to be grateful that they were able to be in that situation, so they can understand how God changed, how God allowed the situation to work in their favor. Listen, a person with a grateful attitude, a person that is grateful, understands that all things work in their favor. Meaning, guess what? Even the situation that I'm in is going to turn around for my good. It's your attitude that's going to make the difference. It's your attitude. When you start renewing your mind, listen to me, you will begin to incorporate more of a positive attitude. I'm not going to blame you for the attitude that you may have. Because listen to me, and I shared this before, there were a lot of things that happened to you that maybe made you, that have incorporated, or maybe has allowed you to possess a more of a negative attitude. All of that is not your fault. But now that you're being exposed to the fact that the event plus your response equals your outcome. If you wish to have a more positive outcome, I'm here to declare that you need to have a more positive attitude. If you come in with the attitude that it's not going to work, I can guarantee you more than likely it's not going to work. If you come in with the attitude that everybody is against you, guess what you're going to think, and guess what the outcome is going to feel like everyone's against you. Your perception to the event, your perception to wherever you are in life is controlling your outcome. I'm interchanging the word perception and attitude because I believe your attitude is driven by your perception. What you perceive. Your perception is literally your reality. What you are perceiving is your reality, and your reality, controlled by your perception, is originated by your attitude. So here we go. How do I begin? How do I begin to change? How do I begin to adjust my outcome? And I've shared with you, we got to start adjusting your attitude. It's up to us now. It's up to you. You have the power to control your attitude. You are the one that controls. Your attitude is not something that happens to you. You choose your attitude. Your attitude is created in your thoughts, and you choose your thoughts. You are the architect of your frame of your mind. Listen to me. This is critical. I need everybody to get this. The life you are living in right now has been framed by your thoughts. Listen to me. The life you're living right now, you can't blame on no one. No one can take the blame for the life you're living right now. The life that you're living right now has been framed by your mind, your thoughts. You are living in your thoughts. Your thought life has you in the place that you're in right now. So what has to happen if you want to grow out of that? If you want more, if you think you're better than where you are, that means you have to shift your thing. You have to renew your mind by allowing your attitude to shift. You have to shift your attitude, shift your thinking, shift your life. Your attitude, your responses. The event is already there. The event has happened. The event is the area that you can't really change. But what you can change is your response. Your attitude is created by your thoughts. If you want to feel better, you have to think better. In order to be positive in the way you feel, it's necessary for you to discipline in the way you think. This came from Focus 3, and the title of it was called The Positive Attitude. If you want to feel better, you have to think better. And it starts with your attitude. There's so many individuals that are listening to this, and you really don't, it's hard for people to tell you, but let me tell you, because, many folk are operating with a negative attitude. This pandemic that we're in can be controlled. Listen to me. Your response to this pandemic is controlling the outcome. The outcomes that you receive. The outcomes that you are manifesting. If your attitude to this event that we're in this coronavirus situation, how you feel about it, what you do about it, what you do in it is controlled by your attitude. If you believe that this is the end, if you believe that this is being controlled by it's a conspiracy theory, then guess what your outcome is going to be? It's going to be conspiracy theory outcome, which means you're not going to trust no one, which means you're not going to be able to expand in this pandemic, which means you're going to be constraining, or you're going to be in constraints because of your attitude. But the individual on the opposite end of the spectrum who believes, guess what? This virus, I can't control, but what I can control is how I respond to this virus. I'm not going to respond I'm going to respond with wisdom. I'm going to respond with knowledge. I'm going to respond, guess what, with fresh revelation from God, and that's going to control my outcome. God is literally saying, guess what? If you learn how to trust and believe and not doubt, I'm going to help expand your outcome. I'm going to allow you to live through this virus in such a way that you're going to thrive and not just survive. Yeah. You're going to survive and not just survive. I told you that's what we were going to talk about this week. Prospering in a pandemic. The only way you can prosper in a pandemic is with your attitude. That's good. The only way you're going to be able to prosper in the midst of the worst pandemic within the last 100 years, something folk have never seen before, it comes with your attitude. You have to shift your thinking to the point where you've made the decision from this moment on, or even you made the decision when the pandemic hit, that I'm going to reap a harvest in the midst of this pandemic. And the moment you start sowing those seeds in your mind, the laws of attraction, things that will help you thrive, will start coming to you. It's like a magnet. They're drawn to you. Doors, opportunities are going to present themselves because in your mind, you are believing, you have declared that you will prosper in the midst of the pandemic. You're prospering because you've shifted your attitude. Now it's not something that's been designed to kill you. The pandemic was actually sent to help you. Oh my, okay, Pastor, what are you talking about? Dr. Duckett, what are you talking about? How in the world this thing is killing hundreds of thousands of people? How is it going to actually help me? Because my attitude towards it has changed. I'm not thinking of it as something that's designed to kill me. I'm thinking of it as something that's designed to help me. It's designed to help me thrive. My outcome is going to be extremely different from the individual. That doesn't mean I'm going to go out there and live reckless. That doesn't mean I'm going to go out there and not wear a mask. I'm not going to be around a whole bunch of people all the time. No, that means that guess what? There's still something positive that will happen in my life through this pandemic. And all I'm doing is waiting for the right moment and the right opportunity to happen. I'm anticipating a great move of God in my life through this pandemic. So my attitude stays positive. My attitude stays on God. My attitude stays on the harvest. My attitude says I'm going to keep planting seeds despite the pandemic. I'm going to plant love. I'm going to plant hope. I'm going to plant joy despite the pandemic. I'm going to be the one that's going to tell you that everything's going to be all right despite the pandemic. I'm going to be the one that's going to walk with my head up despite the pandemic. That's how you prosper in the midst of a pandemic. You shift your attitude. Everybody else wants to be negative. You're the positive one. You're declaring, and guess what? All things will work together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose. I know it's going to work out in my favor. That's how you prosper in the midst of a pandemic. The event is the pandemic that's created equal. Everybody's on a level playing field right now. Everybody has to deal with this pandemic. Everyone. This is worldwide. This is through this entire world. They are living with the same pandemic that you and I are both living with. So how is it that other people are prospering and some people are still settling? Their attitude. I'm helping you. That's how you prosper in the midst of a pandemic. What I've decided to do is not allow the pandemic to shift my focus. In fact, because I know how serious the pandemic is, it has increased my focus. I'm having a single-minded focus. I'm operating with a single-minded focus. That means you have to manage what you focus on. If your focus is on the pandemic, you're going to be drawn towards the pandemic. But if your focus is on prospering in the pandemic, you're going to find opportunities on how to prosper. Listen to me. Look at what this article declared. And I love what it says. It says, the way you think drives the way you feel. When faced with a difficult or frustrating situation, that's the pandemic, you can choose to focus on the problem, engage in negative self-talk, and focus your emotional energy on worrying and complaining, or you can acknowledge what is challenging, discipline yourself to see the big picture, engage in productive self-talk, and focus your emotional energy on finding a solution or enduring the challenge. That's major. What are you going to do? Are you going to focus your energy on the negative self-talk, worrying and complaining about the pandemic? Or are you going to see yourself in the big picture of this, engage in productive self-talk, and focus your emotional energy on finding a solution within the pandemic? It's time to find a solution. That's how you prosper in the pandemic. Are you able to find a job? Are you able to find, if you were fired, are you able to find that business opportunity that you wanted to start so many years ago now that you have the time? Are you going to be able to find a solution within? You got to find the solution within. Is this the perfect opportunity for you to start a new career? Is this a perfect opportunity for you to work from home because you want to be closer to your family? Find a solution within the challenge. That's how you prosper in the pandemic. You prosper by operating with productive self-talk versus negative self-talk. You focus your emotional energy on finding the solution versus worrying and complaining. Yes, it's an inconvenience. Yes, we're not able to do all that we can do or should be able to do. But I believe this is the best season for many persons. I believe this pandemic was sent for the persons who know how to prosper in the midst of a situation that they know they have no control over. They're going to push the limits. They're going to trailblaze. They're going to blaze a trail where most persons have decided not to go. Because listen, look, in the pandemic, you're going to have more persons sitting on the sideline, which means that gives you more opportunity that gives you more of an opportunity to find what you've been looking for. There's not much more competition now. There's not as much competition as it should be, as it would be in a normal circumstance, because those individuals are sitting on the sideline waiting for waiting for everything to open back up. Now you're blazing your trail. You're making sure that you find the opportunity. Because guess what? You focus your emotional energy on finding solution and enduring the challenge. That's how you prosper in a pandemic. It's your attitude. You shifted your attitude. The event, the pandemic, plus your response to the pandemic equals your outcome. I have testimonies on persons who started new careers. I have testimonies on persons who've decided that's what they got, new streams of income, because they've decided not just to work one job, but they've decided, hey, since my job hours are cut short, maybe I can find something else that I'm able to do to be able to pay off debt. I got persons that have become debt-free, during a pandemic. How does that happen? They shifted their attitude. Their emotional energy is no longer on complaining. Their emotional energy is on how to endure, how to find a solution, and guess what? And endure the challenge. Too many of us are complaining about what we're in versus challenging themselves to find a solution. You can't control what the message the media sends out, but what you can control is your response to the message that they send out. You can't control what your leaders do. Yeah, they've been elected for us, but many times they make decisions based on their own personal motives. You can't control that, but what you can control is your response to it. That's how you prosper in a pandemic. No longer will you engage in negative self-talk. There'll be productive self-talk. Emotional energy on finding the solution and enduring the challenge. Let me do a recap. We talked about E plus R equals O. Event plus your response equals the outcome. You got to do all things without grumbling or complaining. That's a scripture, Philippians 2:14. Do all things without grumbling or complaining. I'm just reading the Bible to you. I'm trying to help you. The life that you're living has been framed by your attitude. If you're not living your best life, that means you're not operating with your best attitude. It don't mean you're going to have all things going to be, it don't mean all your bills going to be paid. Don't mean you're going to be sitting up in a 4-bedroom house, 3 bathrooms. It doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. But guess what? When you're grateful, you know you living your best life based on the attitude, based on the frame, based on the thoughts that you currently have. Your life right now, you want a better life? Shift your thinking, shift your life. Your attitude towards your life is going to shift everything in your life. That's how you prosper in a pandemic, because you've shifted your attitude. While everyone is focusing on the problem, you're focused on a solution. You're trying to be even more productive. You're finding even more things to do, not just to be busy, but to be productive. This is good, and I'm closing right here. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. Person that prospers in a pandemic learns how to be productive. They're producing. They're not just allowing the event to control them. They're controlling their response to the event. That's how you prosper in a pandemic. Look, I've been your host, Dr. H. Dante Duckett. I am pastor of New Kingdom Faith Christian Church, located here in Glen Burnie, Maryland, along with my wife, Pastor Diane Duckett. We're located at 500 McCormick Drive, Suite H. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/New Kingdom Faith. I'm so excited that you were able to make it here tonight and listen to this podcast. Share this podcast with as many persons as you can. We need persons to learn how to prosper in the midst of this pandemic. I'm looking at something right now on my bookshelf, one of T.D. Jakes' old books, Maximize the Moment. I know he realizes now that he made that book. He created that book. He wrote that book for this moment right now. We need to maximize this moment that we are in, because guess what? It all starts with our attitude. The event plus the response equals our outcome. I'm going to maximize this moment. I don't know about you, but I'm going to maximize this moment. Make sure you share this podcast with as many persons as you possibly can. Again, I'm your host, Dr. H. Dante Duckett. Enjoy the rest of your life. Remember, a renewed mind learns how to maximize the moment.
You have just been blessed by the transformational teaching of Dr. H. Dante Duckett. Tune in next time to another segment of A Renewed Mind.